Good evening all. Thanks ever so much for joining us this evening. We're privileged, dare I say, to be joined by a vast array of club captains. So the point of this is to just chat through the role of club captain, being on the committee, what the club means to these guys who've been and done the role before, and also about their lessons in life from that experience, their experiences of playing rugby at the club, and what they've learned to then take into industry and working life. So there's a fairly varied group here. I'll go around the group just to ask them to do a quick intro so everybody knows who they are, and then Ben Stringer and Matt Francis are going to kindly fire off with a few questions and just let it flow for the next 30-40 minutes, just catching up. So top of my screen, I've got Mr. Isa and Mr. Seabrook. Gents, do you want to just introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hey guys, good to see you all. Nice to have the opportunity to chat. Yeah, I'm Charlie Sam, was club captain the 2014 season, and then first team captain the season after that. Yeah, I've been working in London kind of since then, since 2016, and yeah, look back fondly on a lot of UBRFC memories, and living with my right hand man, George.
Yeah, hi guys. Unfortunately, sorry to disappoint, I wasn't actually club captain, so I kind of snuck onto the call a bit. But yeah, I've lived with Charlie now for past 4 or 5 years since uni. I was treasurer alongside Charlie, so I was heavily involved in sort of the committee works at uni. And yeah, likewise, I've extremely fond memories of the playing, the social, and otherwise as part of UBRFC. And yeah, graduated in 2016, and yeah, I've been working in London since.
Good stuff. George Carey, where are you? What are you doing in life? How are you doing?
Hey everyone, good to see you all, and yeah, likewise, good fun to be part of this. I was club captain back in 2016, I think, and then yeah, first team captain for the year after. I'm now also working in London, back home in Cheltenham, which is not far from Bristol, for the lockdown. And yeah, I mean, goes without saying, I had a great time being part of UBRFC. Lots of fond memories, and many of them spent with some of the people in this call. So it's good to see these faces.
Good stuff. Fergus, good evening. How you doing?
Hey guys, yeah, my name's Fergus. I started at University of Bristol between George and Charlie and Seabrook. So I must have started in 2014 and was club captain. Definitely didn't have the ability to go on and become first team captain, but started a bit of a mini mafia of people from my school in Cheltenham. So George basically became club captain because he was a graduate of Pates Grammar School in Cheltenham as well, and anything that Mac Dale or others achieved was similarly basically on the basis of that little gang that I set up. After leaving uni, I went to Birmingham as part of the Teach First leadership development program. So I taught in a school near Walsall for 2 years, which was a really interesting challenge, and I had lots of good stories to come out of it. And I'm now working in London, working management consulting now, and I'm working actually on some interesting stuff with the government, which is meaning that I'm actually in the workplace, and as you can see, dressed pretty close to wands. I don't just do that for fun.
Cheers, mate. Owen, how's the world of medicine?
Yeah, how you doing, lads? Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm based in Yeovil at the moment. That's why I've got a lovely fridge freezer in my room and the sink. But I just, still studying medicine. I was club captain after George, so in 2017. And yeah, I loved it. It was quality, and was able to hopefully still be able to play next year when I've still got another year left at uni. So it's a long slog, but very fond memories like everyone else, and yeah, good to be here.
Hal Rose, I mean, I'm just aware here, guys, most people will know Hal from previous, but we have got first years on here who might not have met Hal yet. So Fire away.
Hi
mate.
guys, good to see you all. So I was club captain after O's in 2018 and then first team captain my third year. I am still at uni, so I haven't got too much to offer in the post-uni department, but yeah, doing a master's in innovation entrepreneurship. And obviously would have played this year alongside Sharps. We were going to co-captain, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So I'll pass you on to Sharpie.
Evening, Sharps. Quick intro.
Evening,
mate.
guys. Hope you're all good. Yeah, as Hal said, so I'm first team captain with Hal this year, and I was lucky enough to be club captain last year. So yeah, it's same as Hal. No career advice from me, but happy to fill in where I can.
Bro. Well, I'm going to open up with the first question then, and the easy one to start targeting Mr. Esam, because I guess Mr. Pickles as well, the old school, you could say, on the group. I think George probably bridges more towards performance element side of things, rather than the social side. And I'm talking about the committee as well as the playing, maybe. We can argue that one. But Charlie and Siebes, if you could kindly just let us know a bit about the committee back in your day and why you got involved. Why did you want to get stuck into the role as club captain? And what did it do for you in terms of lessons in life?
Yeah, definitely. I could probably talk for hours on that question. I mean, I think what really struck me when I first joined and came to pre-season was that was quite a nervous time, just like going away from home, been at an all boys school, boarding school, and then you go off to uni. But joining the rugby club and kind of doing pre-season, obviously you get some chat from the older lads, and you got to kind of earn your stripes a little bit. But it's very much like a club that you felt part of, and that was pretty cool, just to come into that environment and look up to the older players. If you're there for 3 years, there's a real kind of sense of getting to grips with it, going up through the ranks, and kind of earning your colours. And I think that's valuable kind of in the world of work as well. And I guess, that kind of confidence element of just kind of gaining your own kind of voice and being able to be a leader in the rugby environment. It is different going into work. I won't pretend like being a leader in a rhubarb social is anything like trying to kind of manage a team in work, but it's definitely valuable in terms of kind of finding your own voice and being confident in yourself. And that's kind of why I wanted to get involved, just kind of looking up to the guys that were above me.
And yeah, for me, really, I mean, echo what Charlie said generally, but just coming into UBRFC, obviously I've been involved in many a rugby club before, both with school and various club sides. But the thing that struck me coming to UBRFC was just how much it meant to everyone that was involved and how much everyone got out of it and how much everyone just absolutely loved being part of the club. So I think as a first year, you immediately come in, you just want to completely immerse yourself in it, and you get so much back from it that in your second and third year, you want to feel like you want to give something back to the club and help, as sort of cheesy that says, help take the club forward and feel like you're leaving it in a better place than when you joined. So yeah, I was really keen to get involved, joined the sort of senior committee with Charlie, and then just became, was just really good mates with everyone else in the committee. And being part of a fairly heavily player-led club, us as the committee were given quite a bit of freedom in terms of how we manage the club, what we want to do and what direction we want to take the club in. Obviously, there was involvement from our coaches at the time. And when Charlie and I were sort of in the committee, that was the last year of the previous coach, Salts. And then obviously Joe came in our third year. But I think even now, from what I understand, the players are given quite a degree of sort of flexibility in how they want to shape the club and what direction they want to take it in. And yeah, it was just a great experience to be part of that, almost like being part of a mini sort of business / rugby club that you can run and really put a lot of effort into.
Great stuff. So Fergus, would you follow up on that, mate, and give us your insight into becoming the captain following on from Charlie?
Yeah. I'd echo everything that those two have just said. I think the biggest thing that I found coming into into the rugby club was a real sense of community, and kind of family, such that the people who I'm still closest with from uni are, similar to Charlie and George. I live with somebody who was on the committee with me, Luke, who was the fresh secretary when we were there. Still end up going around and watching rugby with Charlie and George on the weekends, or doing Zooms where we watch it together and give really boring noisy analysis to each other, now that we're not allowed to hang out together. And I think wanting to play a part in that was something that was really important for me, just whether that was in any role on the committee, really. And then once doing it, I think I'd echo everything they'd already said. I don't want to repeat it, but the additional thing that I was really fortunate to see, partly because we were in a really transformational period in the year that I was fortunate to be running the club. We had Joe coming in as the first ever full-time coach appointed by the university. We had a huge amount of work going on to try and secure, a brand new level of funding from the RFU, which had never been done before. And also at that time, the alumni were beginning to get interested in, helping us to build the 4G pitch, which we now have at Dingle. And those things kind of all happened in that year. And as a result, I managed to go with Joe to a couple of really, really important meetings and interesting meetings, and get a real insight into, how the RFU works, how they view the university game, but also massive exposure to some of the older guys in the alumni network, and the huge amount of commitment and love that they have for the club. And there was one dinner I think that Joe and I went to, I think it was the night before a game against Cardiff Met, wasn't it, Joe? And we went there, and there was a big long conversation about, what does the club need, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, the guy who was sort of chairing this kind of discussion said to Joe, look, what's the one thing that you need? Like, if there's one thing that we can give you, what is it? And Joe went, look, to be honest, we just need a 4G. And those things are like ridiculously expensive. It's a huge thing. And that was basically the first step to getting that done. And so to be there and be around these people, who were able to make that happen for the club because of their love for it was, it was amazing.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Fergus. It was certainly a hell of an education for me coming in the first time into this environment. And I'm really interested to hear what particular skills you picked up from your role as club captain then, because it was that turning point with me coming in and probably being quite a challenge for you to manage me. You're managing, whether you think of it down, up, sideways, however, but also, me learning the history of the club and about the players and the group and the culture and all those sorts of things, in addition to, all the other challenges coming from management within the sports department, and the Bob Reeves of the world are brilliant in supporting things, and the RFU involvement. What would you say that you've taken from all of that learning and experience into your job now?
I think the CV buzzword that people will be looking for is stakeholder management, right, is what you're talking about. And that's, it's funny because, like, I think Charlie made the point that leading in a social in Rhubarb as was, or, wherever you guys have been expelled to now that Rhubarb is no more, that is no different. But actually, there are lots of bits of that are actually much harder than dealing with people in business world, because nobody is as determinedly traditional as members of a rugby club who've only been there for 2 years, but for whom those traditions are their lives. A story that we always talk about still to this day is when we were in the club on Wednesday night bunker, where we had our table nicked from us, and I think the Snow Sports Society were in our table, and George Seabrook was running around shouting, we've had that table for 20 years, I can't believe they're taking it off us. And somebody at some point the next day went, I think the club's only been open for 5 years.
That never happened, Fergus. Then we know about it.
So you've got that kind of attitude on one hand, and then you've got, Joe, you were coming in completely fresh, so many new ideas. And then at the same time, you've got people on different opposing sides of different opinions from SEH or from, people like Bob and the alumni. And so actually, in a way, those interests are almost more entrenched than they would be in a business setting, because people care about it more. They're more inclined maybe to to fight their corner even harder, just like George and Bunker.
Love it. So if I come on to you, George, with regard to your experience as club captain, why did you want to do it in the first place, and what particular skills did you pick up?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of what's been said. In particular, I think there was a strong desire to do it just based on like the people that had done it before and seeing like what they had done. I think it was actually like Charlie and George's house I stayed in pre-season. My first experience of Bristol was sleeping on one of their floors. So yeah, I think like from then on it was straight away clear that like I had to some nights Donald would have the bed and I'd be on the floor, and then other nights Donald would be on the floor and I'd be in the bed. But yeah, I think from then on it was like a massive part of my whole uni career, to be honest. Like first year rugby was probably more of what I did than anything else. So straight from that, I think I knew that I wanted to be even more committed and do a bit more and be more involved. And I think it's also a lot of like what I was thinking, and I guess what a lot of people are thinking when they're at uni is, how can you do more than just your degree? How can you sort of build a CV, as Pickles has said, like how can you build that story? And for me, it was like a very obvious thing. Like why not do that through the rugby club? So yeah, I think in terms of things I've learned a heck of a lot, and it's definitely like a useful thing for interviews and for CV writing. For me, like time management was actually a huge thing. Like splitting between like club captaincy, which is a huge commitment. Like it requires a lot of time, or at least it did when I was doing it. So splitting that time, like first team playing is obviously a huge commitment as well. And then like you got to mix in actually getting a degree somehow. So that was a big one. Being able to write a good email is a skill that you'll definitely learn if you ever become a club captain. And just I think like it's just a great opportunity to sort of have that thing going on the side and be able to build a story of what you've actually achieved at university, and like you can show. I mean, as Pickles was saying, it's very, very like transitional time for the club when I was club captain, and actually being able to write down on paper or like pitch in a pitch to the SCH, like what's been done, what you've been working on. That is something that like is still useful, and I'm still doing things like that now. So yeah, I'd say that was a big part of it.
Great stuff. Owen, if I can bring you in, mate. Obviously, you've got the challenge with medicine, balancing that with performance rugby. So I'd be interested to kind of take on that time management and how that skill developed, and anything else that you took from the role as club captain.
Yeah, definitely. I think to echo what the other boys are saying again, like the time management thing is something that was definitely really, really important and came to the forefront when I was club captain. I think I was able to do that because I had the trust in my committee, knowing that I could delegate to them and be sure that I could just follow up. And I think developing that skill of being able to delegate when needed and being sure to, as George was saying, write these emails, like that is keeping on top of everything, and just making sure that you're dealing with everything as they come up, as opposed to just taking everything on yourself and then trying to juggle it all. So I think that skill definitely through delegating with my team, with boys like MacDale, who are quality with me in my year. But yeah, I think another skill is like in those professional environments, really like working with Bob and with the boys in the SEH and being in those meetings and having to chair those meetings and discuss what is happening and coming under a bit of pressure, especially like I remember my year at the time, I think we were in special measures, and it was like a bit of it felt like we were always fighting back against the SEH. And I think that part of what was driving me to wanting to keep on top of it, because I didn't feel the club was as bad as some. We were a good club, and we wanted to keep on fighting for ourselves in that sense. So it's like in those meetings is quite sometimes getting quite being able to speak professionally and sharing those, I think, was a really good skill, and interacting with different people. But yeah, that I think the time management was the main thing for me, really. Brilliant. If I could bring in Will Sharp and Hal Rose jointly, and ask you guys just to talk about your experiences of club culture now and how it's evolved with the two of you progressing over the last couple of years regarding not just the performance, but the inclusion side with the club, and the challenges you guys have faced there and how you've overcome them.
Yeah, I think, well, the year I was club captain was quite a tricky one. I probably didn't really know what I was getting myself into, to be honest. We were in a bit of a weird situation at that time with the university in terms of that relationship and level of funding and stuff. So in the year I was club captain, we were basically given a bit of an ultimatum that we either had to show that we had changed as a club or effectively they'd drop us, wasn't it? That was kind of the thing that went on. So it was a bit of a tough year for me because I felt like I was carrying a lot of the burden and I didn't really know what I was doing. But yeah, no, it was good, and we've come a long way since then. And like our relationship with the uni now compared to that year is awesome. And I think, yeah, that's both in terms of probably less mistakes socially, but also just like the performance side of it. And I think for the last 2 years, we've had like the biggest numbers at pre-season out of any club. I think more than any other club combined on the last pre-season. I think we had 90 odd there. That was more than like any other club in the uni combined, maybe apart from rowing. And then, yeah, just our like numbers and commitment to training. Obviously, we got pushed to the early mornings when I was third year then. And obviously, like how we came through that, training at 7 a.m. Monday, Friday. I don't know, maybe Carrie will put his word in, but I can't imagine many of those lads would have fancied a 7 a.m. training.
This is the interesting point from me and just the evolution of things is that with Charlie, George, Pickles Year and Owines, you know, all coming through alongside yourself, is that I don't think, certainly having coached all of the groups and knowing all of the guys on this call, that your values are any less, or your commitment to the club or performance to a degree was any less than any of the guys who are currently involved. I think there's been a changing of the mindset as to what the understanding is of performance, and the goals of the club have slightly changed, and the recognition of the investment levels and how we try to compete with other universities to both provide a performance product, if you like, but also a participation and making sure there's rugby for all, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 teams, probably, if you include intramural and medics and everything else we do. So I think that's full credit to all of you have had a, you know, that process has just gradually pushed and pushed, and there was always going to be a pain point. There was always going to be that flash point. And it's, you know, it just happened to be on your watch, which was just unfortunate. Sharps, do you want to talk about your experience following on from Howell, and, you know, why you got involved and what the challenges were?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as Hal said, it was very much a rebuilding job, so to speak, in terms of like relations with the university. And as the other guys have said, like a massive thing for me was sitting in these meetings. I mean, you spend most of first year playing a lot of rugby, but just basically sitting around in your halls, doing very little, meeting very few people outside of your mates. So all of a sudden to be in a room with, you know, people from the university, people like Bob Reeves, it is like a massive learning curve, and you quickly learn how to sort of speak to adults. And it's something, you know, even, you know, a lot of people at uni don't really even speak to people, you know, that aren't students. So in that respect, it's a fantastic way to build and sort of develop as a character. Yeah, as Hal said, it was very much just trying to get back, build up our relationship with the university. And I think, you know, it's something that's for the last 3-4 years has been, you know, massively improved on. I'm not blaming the older boys at all, because it's one of those things that's just happened naturally. I think all rugby clubs in general nowadays are under a lot more scrutiny. You know, there's stuff in the press that means that, I don't know, maybe you've got to be more careful, but also the club is just naturally, you know, more of a performance culture now, which is a good thing. The challenge for us, I would say, is making sure that we stay to our values and our culture, because, you know, as the fact we've got 7 lads on here talking about their time shows that, like, it's a great club. We've got unbelievable culture. And that's something that we need to stick to. So as we develop, it's making sure that all the lads and all the first years who, you know, have never been to a social, they really understand what the club's about. And it's important we never lose that side of things, because, you know, performance is great and that's one aspect, but, you know, there is the other side to it. And it's something that's why, you know, everyone on this call has been saying how much they love UBRFC. And I'd say that's probably why.
Brilliant. Great stuff, Sharpie. So I'll hand over now to Ben and Matt, so you guys can fire away with a few questions to the panel. Best of luck.
Yeah, so it's a bit like Lawrence and Alex won last week. You've got a few of our own and a few that have been sent in. So I guess I'll kick off. I guess open one to all of you. So if there was sort of one, like, if you could pick one biggest lesson you learned from being in your position, and or had one specific tip to a lot of these first years, like a few of which may well be in committee positions next year, whether it's club captain or not, but what would you suggest to them to sort of maximise their time at UBRFC and sort of best deal with a role they may have?
Yeah, sure. I guess advice to someone coming into committee position. I guess try and stay true to the things that you like about the club. I guess if you've gone for a committee position, it will be for the same reasons that all the CCs and everyone on this call have done it. It's because you've kind of found something that you buy into. You've seen something kind of in yourself, something bigger than you that you want to be a part of. And so just like, I guess, be true to that. Sounds a bit cheesy, but keep the good parts that you love about UBRFC. And if there's things that you do think can be improved, it could be around the performance stuff, or maybe as a committee, it's more around the kind of off the field stuff, and particularly at the moment, the role of the club is probably more off field, because none of us are playing any rugby, and so there's kind of there's a well-being, there's a kind of there's a big social aspect that people can get out of the club, and just kind of being there for the club's members, I think could be particularly important.
Yeah, just quickly to follow on from that, I'd say that for first year, sort of thinking about going on the committee next year, I'd say definitely don't go on the committee if it's only to go on your CV. Don't look at it as something to just say, oh yeah, I'll just do that, it looks good in the CV. Only go on the committee if you want to. And I think you've got a very good reason to. Like, we were both on the committee and absolutely loved it, but there were definitely people in our year who thought, oh yeah, this is an easy thing. I'll pick up one of the sort of lesser roles just as something to put on the CV as an easy job. And you soon get found out. Only sort of go on the committee if you actually are fairly passionate about it and want to give something back and want to sort of chuck yourself in head first. Otherwise, you'll get found out and you just won't enjoy it and you're wasting everyone's time. But I think that there's a huge amount to be gained from going on the committee. But if you find yourself in one of those roles, make sure that you're sort of, go into it head first and give your all.
Yeah, I think agree again with everything everyone said previously. There's a huge amount of different things that you have to do if you're, assuming you guys still do it in second year, it requires a level of maturity of you that I certainly wasn't applying to any other area of my life at that age. And again, the level of commitment that is required, it's not actually that much, but it requires you to be really serious about something. And I think that's really important when you think about the club and how much you care about it. I know certainly one of the things that I was told when I took over the role was that delegation was going to be really important. And I found delegation really hard, partly because of the problem that Seabrook was just talking about, that it's, it depends on who you've got, and actually delegating to your mates, if your mates can't be asked, is pretty difficult. Whereas I know, for example, George Carey was a bit of an arch delegator, never really saw him with his name against anything. But no, yeah, I think genuinely that seriousness you've got to go into it caring about the club, and if you do, I found it one of those things actually, because I studied English throughout my university career. Rugby was the thing that gave me structure. It was the thing that really, I think if I didn't have it both in playing and in the administrative sense, I God knows what I would have done with my time there. But it really made me grow up in a really good way, and I learned a huge amount throughout my time, not just in that year on the committee.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely echo these sentiments, especially just an effective committee is definitely one that works together. Like it is a lot of work for one person, but if you do have a committee that actually does share the load and people on it that are really passionate about making a difference, then it would work. I think also like it is a massive opportunity to like, don't see it as sort of one set role, like, oh, club captain is just doing all the admin, making sure like you're turning up to the emails, like, oh, club sec books the referees. Like it's much more than that. Like it is a big opportunity. Essentially, like it's your role, your club to do with it what you want. So definitely like listen to the other members of the club, like look for what they want, and use it as a way of really building what you want your club to look like. It's not sort of predefined, or at least it wasn't in our days like predefined, and I'm sure it's not now. It's something that you can roll with. I think the other big thing is like, obviously we're talking a lot about being on the committee here and how great it is, but like it doesn't mean that if you're not on the committee, like you don't have a voice or you can't do anything to do with like, I guess, the club's development. I think it should be quite the opposite. And I guess maybe part of like a really healthy club, one with a really effective culture, is one where like everyone's getting involved. So definitely, if you're thinking, oh, maybe a committee is not for me, it's definitely not like a black and white picture. Like you can still definitely get involved there.
One thing that George just said is the best piece of advice that Charlie gave to me when I started as club captain was, and this is such a life lesson, is when you start something and it's really difficult, really hard and really busy, it's so easy just to get, on the treadmill of like George is saying, doing the admin or doing whatever it is you need to do. The one thing Charlie said was, have a vision about the thing that you want to do and make sure that you follow that through. And I think that's so important in anything, right? Like you can always just get stuck in the day to day. The thing that Charlie and George did that was revolutionary for our year was they introduced a fifth team. I know you guys gone back to 4 teams now, but there never used to be a fresh team that played on Wednesdays. And that was massive for our year. In previous years, we'd had far fewer freshers coming through and staying in the club. Whereas that fresh team that they basically put together when we were in our first year, it meant that a huge number of people stayed in the club. And by the time they were in third year, they were basically it was something like 18 or 19 out of a squad of 22 in the third team that year were all from that year group, and they basically went unbeaten all season and got promoted and had one of the best seasons that our UBRFC third team had ever had, and that was basically because Charlie and George at the start of that year had said, okay, fine, we're gonna work hard, but also what's the one thing we want to achieve, and that was a real legacy they left.
Yeah, sorry, just gonna hop in as well. Actually, it's made me think of probably one of the things I learned massively from the role is actually just, if you do land one of these positions, club captain or in the committee, like choose reasonable goals and go for like I guess it's the old like marginal gains buzzword, but like don't go for complete. I think like in our year we had some massive ideas and pictures of like being one of the top like performance clubs in the country in quite a short timeline. So definitely just choose sort of realistic goals, things that when they all add up will make a real difference to the club. But don't go for something too big too soon. Go for the marginal gains.
And just quickly on one of the things Pickle said was I think one of the lessons around when George and I were on the committee was we did that big push for the fifth team and for the freshers. And I think applying that lesson to kind of the world of work, but how you kind of engage with people coming into a club or an organization says a lot about it. And we've obviously the kind of older second, third years might give the freshers a hard time, but if you really put the effort in, and in the rugby sense, you get them out on the field, you get them playing, you get them enjoying it, then the future of the club kind of takes care of itself. Luckily, when Pickles joined, him and a load of his mates really bought in to kind of the club and what we were doing. And then when we left, we kind of felt a sense of, yeah, the club's in a good place because the guys below us just really love it. And I guess in the world of work, like if you've got kind of an intern or a grad joining a team, the way you kind of integrate them, the way you treat them, I think says a lot about a kind of organization and a company. So that, I guess that was a lesson learned.
Right, well, lads, I'll take over the next question. First, thanks for sharing your time and the advice that you've said so far. I'm sure it'll help majority of us in this call. But this question is mainly for Owain. Obviously, you're still studying medicine, which is known to be, a really heavy workload. But the main thing is, I'm just asking, do you have any tips for these freshers in this call? How you managed to juggle the first team, your degree, and being co-captain all at the same time, and just how did you manage to stay on top of all of it?
Yeah, I think it's being honest with yourself. Like sometimes you're not going to be able to. It's going to feel a bit overwhelming because, as you say, there are workloads, there are deadlines, and you got to just keep on plugging away at it and trust in your people that are with you, that you can rely on them, to turn to them when you are feeling when the workload is piling up. And I think that's one great thing about the club as well. Like they've always got that, we've always had that community of people that you can turn to if you ever need a chat or anything like that at any point. But I think actually how I actually managed to do it was just pick as things were coming up, just dealing with them straight away, then not putting them to a side and not getting too absorbed doing one thing. Like I would do my like club captain work, and then I think what Pickles touched on it, he said the structure that I gave you. I think with the rugby training and just going to these meetings, like I knew what I had to do and it was quite structured, but it just meant that you work hard when you work hard, and then you play hard, like you enjoy yourself when you can, obviously. But yeah, I think that would be the main thing for me, like that time management aspect of it, but also the ability to just say, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and then now I'm putting that away. And it doesn't mean that you're just working all the time. It just means that when you're working, you're actually doing what you need to be doing. I think it's a good skill that has stood me in, well, hopefully will stand me in good stead for the future now.
Cheers, Owen. Thanks very much. I've got a question for Fergus, actually. Obviously, all of us have mentioned sort of the feel of sort of family and community, and you've got a proper sort of network of sort of great mates here. But you also yourself said that you really struggle sort of delegating. So did you ever have any experiences whilst you were club captain where like you might have had to have, for example, like a difficult conversation with a close mate of yours because perhaps you had asked them to do something and they hadn't, and how would you approach such a scenario?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. That sounds like I'm about to give an answer to an interview question. I'm on the spot. Yeah, look, I think it depended, right? That there was a variety of people in my committee, some of whom you could sit down and genuinely have a more professional type conversation with. And this comes back to the thing that I was saying before, which is that it's a much harder skill when it's with people who know you personally and don't have a professional obligation. So there are people, maybe some really good friends of mine, Chris and Chadam, Fradham's older brother, were more senior members of the committee who if they hadn't done something, it would be quite simple to sit them down and say, look, here's the end goal, here's what we need to do, here's the context, this is what we need to do. Can you please do it? This is serious now. And that's kind of probably the way in which you would approach a more professional conversation. You know, if you're talking to somebody who's a mate but who also can't really be bothered, and you know what the real reason why they joined the committee was because they were going to get a card that gave them free entry to bunker on a Wednesday night and queue jump, then you know you have to have a much more serious conversation which says, look, you're potentially screwing your mates over here, you're potentially screwing me over, we really need this. You know, and again, it's making clear that context. I think one of the interesting things that Joe said is that there was a perception that previously people weren't aware of the level of funding that was put into the club or the amount of stuff that was done for it. And I think that's something which we should always be reiterating to people, right? Is there's a lot on the line for the club at all times. It's something which a huge number of people have invested a lot in. And you know, and it's always helpful to remind people of that. Having said that, you know, to be honest, and I'm sure Joe would be able to tell you this, I was not always successful in doing that, and probably was too ready to be like, I can have a really hard conversation and maybe get something done not as well as I want, or I can just go and do it. I probably chose the latter.
You weren't alone in that though, mate. You weren't alone in that one. I still have that problem myself. But I think it's the great skills that you guys are recognizing now, and that ability to reflect on that has probably put you in good stead, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Essentially, I think the core thing, you know, let's assume that you have people who you can delegate to. The absolute core thing is that you have to be able to let go, and you have to be able to trust. There's a lot written about you know, that kind of leadership, which allows people, you ask people to come and tell you, you know, what do you want to do? They say, I'm going to do this, and you go, oh, yeah, that's great, rather than them asking you questions. And that's, you know, that's where you want to be. You want to be able to say, you know, as Carrie was able to say to somebody in his committee, I think you need to do this. Can you do it? Can you go away and work it out, and then just tell me what you're going to do? And, you know, and they'd be able to do that. And, you know, 99% of the time, barring the odd mishap, you know, that worked really well for them.
Right, so I think Will O'Connor has a question for, well, don't know who, but so.
Yes, so thanks guys for like taking the time to do this first of all. And you said like a lot about what you've got out of like being club captain, but I don't know like if it's just me, but I think a lot of the fresh this year, because the club hasn't been running like normal because of COVID and everything, all of us really understand what like the role of the club captain actually involves and what you actually have to do. So if I target the one club captain not being recognised yet, Mr. Bedson, because you're CC as well. So do you want to fancy taking that one, Henry? My club captain after all.
Cheers, Will. Thanks. You put me on the spot there. Firstly, again, massive thank you to all the lads that have got involved tonight, especially the older boys coming back. I think the way I'd answer that one, especially, you know, in regard to this year, is I think the job of club captain for me has been, you know, how I can facilitate and how I can sort of manage and drive the club in the right direction, in line with our goals, in terms of what we want to do in the long term. And then the day-to-day stuff, like, you know, it can be simple things like when I'm, you know, emailing you freshers, you know, prior to coming to pre-season and sorting out stuff like where you're going to live and stuff like that. But then at the same time, it can be, you know, having, you know, meetings and sitting down with some of the more, you know, senior people and members of, you know, the advisory group and stuff, and planning, you know, alumni, you know, the 1876, some of you will know, and a lot of the boys actually here. So thank you very much for getting involved in the 100 Club. But yeah, I think it's a whole range of things, but it's just continuing the direction and the drive and sort of facilitating that for I guess you guys to enjoy, sort of thing.
I've actually got, obviously excluding Beds in there. So I've got another question. So obviously it's quite a general question just for all of you, but what are you doing currently after uni, and how do you think the captain's role helped you to open up doors in the rest of your careers?
Yeah, I'll go quickly. So I work for a company called Fidelity, who are an asset management company, so finance generally. I went on one of the like grad schemes, and so got experience in a load of different roles, including some sales roles. more kind of on the investment side now. I think the main thing that I was considering was, I guess, being captain or being on the committee, you're used to kind of speaking and giving kind of not speeches, but maybe team talks, but talking confidently and trying to get people kind of alongside. And that is massive. Whatever you do, whatever industry you go in, just communicating really well and trying to bring people along with you, trying to convince someone that something's a good idea. And actually, I didn't find it all that easy, kind of starting work. And it wasn't as easy as I found kind of giving a team talk before a game. And I wasn't the best at doing that either. But when you kind of go into the world of work, I was questioning whether I knew what I was talking about. And I know rugby, and so I was confident giving those talks. But when you go into work, I was in a very different environment. But I guess just working through that and knowing that I did have that ability in me somewhere, and just knowing that it wasn't going to be kind of supernatural, but just working at it. And as I got more confident in the job I was doing, I got back to the kind of confidence in speaking and communicating that I had before. But that was just kind of a process, and it wasn't always kind of really easy. Didn't come really naturally to begin with. But all the stuff at uni was such good experience to just fall back on in some of those kind of tougher moments.
Yeah, I also work in finance. I work for a bank currently doing property development finance, and previously I worked more in investment banking for a couple of years. But yeah, I think the sort of main transferable skills that I've sort of picked up or have picked up throughout my years at UBRFC that I've taken into the working environment were just sort of being able to work as part of a team, and sort of the interpersonal skills that you develop both through working as part of a committee, and also just that you develop through playing rugby and meeting the varied people from all across the country that you do when you're part of UBRFC. And just also, as a couple of guys have touched on, the sort of time management type thing, being a committee member and playing sort of competitive rugby alongside a degree is quite a bit of time management. And you really do, I mean, it's something you put on your CV and people might think it's a bit of a joke, but really you do have a lot more of your spare time taken up than if you're just doing a degree where you've got sort of 6 to 10 hours of lectures a week. If you've got to balance that alongside training for rugby 4 or 5 times a week, and also doing your committee work, and also trying to have a bit of a social life, it's far less of a transition into the working world than if you're going from just doing a degree straight into that. So it sort of softens the blow a little bit. Yeah, and also just sort of building a bit of a network, both of the guys that you're at the club with, and then guys who are years above you that you'll meet at all these various alumni dinners and other events over the years.
I'll hop in before Pickles bores us with what he's up to. So I work for a research company. So it's quite a mix of things involved. Mix of sort of sales, obviously like more, I guess, research side of things. And yeah, I'd say in terms of big learnings from my time at the club, I think just a sense of like maturity and discipline were huge for me. I think I grew up a lot, particularly from like second year onwards. Definitely like just puts you in good stead for when you have to leave uni and join the professional world. And then would also definitely agree, just like I think like the stakeholder management piece, but just generally like being able to pitch an idea, have a conversation, really critically think about like what is the problem, what's the solution going to be, and how you're going to get there. You know, is something that is definitely done in the role and by the committee. You know, essentially the job is taking in what the club's saying, what the people in the club saying, what the uni's saying, and figuring out a way forward. And I think if you can do that, then like that puts you in good stead for a lot of jobs in the future.
Yeah, echo all the above. I think definitely what Charlie was saying around speaking skills and presenting skills is something that you learn a lot about. There's a couple of things that really stick in my mind from my time as club captain. So the one I think I've already mentioned, when Joe and I went to Twickenham with the coach and the club captain of the women's club, and we were presenting for, I can't remember how much money from the RFU, but it was a decent amount, and had to stand in front of these people and basically talk about why we deserved an amount of money which I couldn't really imagine at the time, and is probably still way beyond what you'd normally think about. A huge learning experience, and those are the kind of things which no one expects you to be good at when you start working, and if you are able and have some experience in doing that, then that's massive. I took a slightly different career route, as I mentioned, so I ended up doing a career which involved me talking to lots of people a lot, which Carrie won't be surprised at because I love the sound of my own voice. So I went into teaching, and there aren't many audiences much harder than a bunch of bottom set 15-year-olds who struggle to read and hate English. But again, preparation for that came. There was a time when George and I had to basically go in after training to a bunch of guys who were all set on going on a rugby tour to Prague, which they'd paid for. And a decision had been made that we weren't going to be able to go. And George and I basically had to talk down about 30 odd guys, 30 to 40 guys who were all, dead set on going, and they'd spent their money. And I think in the end, there was probably only a group of about 6 that went, and that was a huge moment, actually, in terms of getting us out of potentially what would be a difficult situation. And okay, they weren't, 15-year-olds who stink and, hate learning English, but they were pretty annoyed with us. And I didn't think there's any real comparable experience that you could have had in uni other than being in that position.
Cheers, thanks guys. I just got one question for you, Hal, actually specifically. Obviously, you and Hugh have just launched H2 Nutrition. So anyone hasn't seen that, go check it out. But it was basically asking if you obviously were a lot of sort of leadership positions here, club captain, first team captain, and sort of working on Alumni H76. I was wondering if any of that you had translated or used, like any sort of learning points when setting up this with Hugh.
Yeah, I think from what a lot of the lads have said about sort of speaking skills, presenting skills, especially like interacting with people a lot older than you. Like it's quite easy to interact with people your own age, but coaches or people that work at university, etc. And then also I think in terms of directly related to the role, I think a lot of the reason that I did it is because I like respected the older lads in the club, like who came before me. And then I think a lot of alumni kind of give you some respect. So I think probably managed to speak to a few people who maybe I wouldn't have otherwise managed to speak to, being like a UBRFC club captain, like especially with the alumni stuff, like reaching out for the 1876 and the 100 Club and stuff. Like you'd be amazed how many people get in touch with you and like from their fond memories in the past are willing to give you a lot of free time, which you'd never normally have in any other like situation. So I think that's been a huge benefit in terms of for me, and will only be a massive benefit for me like going on if I'm going to try and start this business. And yeah, leadership, I think also confidence. I think the lads also mentioned that, but in terms of like situations of like public speaking in front of people, because don't forget, if you're a second year, there's probably still lads in the club who like 3 are definitely 2, 3, sometimes 4 with like Gompels and Creswell and stuff when I was there. So like having the confidence to be like a leader, but ultimately not the oldest, and like speaking up with people around you stands you in quite a good stead, I think, as to how you can like take that on and sort of like have the confidence to speak up and stuff. So yeah, I'd say probably it.
Great stuff, guys. We're going to work now towards wrapping this up because we've already stolen an hour of your time. So the final question from me, and I'll move through the captains, is what's your best memory, your fondest memory, or your most memorable moment as a member of the club? So not necessarily in your role as captain, but whatever it is that you've taken away from the club, that no matter what the stage or situation is in life, you can look back on that moment and it brings a smile to your face. I'll open that up to Mr. Esam.
Well, I'm gonna steal two just because two came to my mind. One is on the pitch and one's off it. On the pitch was I think Joe's first kind of competitive game, with Bucks game away at Bath. At the end of a pretty long defensive set, I went down with cramp, but just looked up in time to see George Lawson nab an intercept to secure us the game, and ran the length, and then he did a Jason Robinson style punching of the ball, and he punched it out of the rec. We're playing at the rec, and the ball literally went into orbit. I have no idea how he punched it so hard. Cleared the stadium. And quickly as well, off the pitch, George and I, the tour we arranged to Paris in our second year, played Rouen second team, and then went on to Paris. There were about 30 of us, all our closest mates. We did what was called a Club de Vin in front of the Eiffel Tower, with a bottle of wine and a straw each, and all wearing UBRFC ties. And yeah, that was a pretty rugby, but pretty cool memory.
Mr. Seabrook, your memory?
Yeah, I've got to say it's that tour to Paris as well. Me and Charlie put our heart and soul into organising that tour, and it was unbelievable. So that was a lot of fun. And then on pitch, probably getting called up to the varsity squad in third year and playing in front of 5,000 people or whatever it was at the men was a real special moment. So yeah.
You're rubbing it into the current first years.
Yeah, sorry boys.
You eventually had that fixture curtailed, shall we put it. I like that structure though, Charlie. That's a good one. We'll continue with that. Fergus, your best on-field and off-field memory?
Yeah, on-field definitely that year when we started, with you coaching, Joe, and we had Bath away at the rec, and it used to be this classic, curtain raise they did every season, and they'd invite loads of people down from their uni. There'd probably be 3,000-4,000 people there. This is actually an off the field thing for me, because I was playing that game and then got injured, which enabled our best player to come onto the pitch and score a try, Sam Jeffries. But also the thing that I did, which is an example of the kind of like fun scope that you have as club captain, is I organised that day for our second and third team to go away to Cardiff Union, play an away fixture against the Cardiff Medics, and get a fun bus directly back to the rec. And so consequently, we had basically the entire of the club there watching, and it was the loudest sort of crowd I've ever played in front of. It was probably only like 100 of them in a 4,000 crowd, but it was it was absolutely so raucous and felt like just amazing to sit on the bench with my twisted ankle and watch the boys do it on the field. Actually, the same season, we had in my time a couple of 2 or 3 losing finals, and there are a few to pick from, but in my last match as a player, we had a double-headed promotion playoff to get into Bucks Super Rugby, and we just had nobody available, like absolutely nobody. We had third teamers making their one and only appearance to the first team.
I think we had a 5th team back row that I'd never met.
Yeah. You had no idea what was going on, and we went up to Nottingham and got hammered, and they had all their guys who never played for them. And it was dreadful. And then we had to go and do it again. And the first play of the game, we had this amazing fullback Bart come and play for us, and he, I think he'd had a car breakdown overnight and had not slept, but bless him, he'd come back, and off the kick-off we're like, right, we're just gonna have play our hearts out here, and we'll try and scrape a win. It was aggregate, so it'd still lose by 40 points. And first play of the game, you can see it's on YouTube, it went viral. They just grubber kicked it through, and this guy was just absolutely knackered running back. He was about to go dead, and one of the Nottingham Trent players just yelled to him, "Oh, keep it in!" And he just flips it back in field, and they dropped on it and scored. And you're just like, what are you doing? But I think that the thing that came out of that for me, and it was the last game I ever played for the club, was the sense of togetherness of those boys who turned up and did play and were willing to do that for the club was amazing. And sometimes it's in those really difficult moments of adversity that you get more out of than the amazing wins.
Yeah, I love that. Carrie, your on and off field memory?
Yeah, there's lots to pick from. I think on field, I'm thinking about, I think it's the first time we did Wednesday night lights actually. Was a proper rainy Wednesday home at Dingle. And I think we managed to get, like the team did a good job of getting a good crowd down. So we had probably like 200-300 people maybe down at Dingle, and it was against Cardiff, who were, I think, league leaders at the time. And it's probably our biggest win in terms of like how well we played and obviously the competition of that season. So yeah, that was just that game in general was probably my on-pitch highlight. Though also, to be fair, I think that game at the Rec was my first team debut for UBRFC. So that was a good one, and I got a yellow card as well. So it was a fun bus journey home. Off pitch, I'm aware we've been recorded, so got to keep it vaguely PC. But again, there's some great ones. I think on the ski trips, we'd have the mountain socials, which were always good fun. But a big one for me was probably the first alumni dinner that we went to at Twickenham, because not only was it obviously a great night out and good fun, it was actually just like the first time I'd really been fully exposed to that group of people and how many they were and who they were. So yeah, that was a good evening.
I remember that. Good stuff. And Owain, I'm gonna last one for Owain. No one needs to hear all of you guys now, because we'll hopefully do this again in the near future, and I'm well aware of stealing people's time. So Owain, wrap it up, mate. Your best memories on and off field.
Yeah, well, the ski trip, echoing what Kai said, and definitely the alumni dinner. Like, when you boys get the opportunity to go in the future, it's a quality event, and it's a great opportunity to catch up with a lot of mates, hopefully in the future now. But off field for me, I think we mentioned earlier the difficulty in setting up, like keeping your mindset in order to be able to do what you want to achieve in the club. And I remember our year, we really wanted to get the Wednesday night lights idea up and running. And I was really pleased to be able to actually have that going, and that is still ongoing now. Hopefully when rugby comes back on, but just the success with people turning up to it, and then the occasions that made. And then that leads into my on-field, really. I think playing, unfortunately, we haven't been able to have many matches against our varsity, well, now because it's been curtailed, but I'm playing UE at one of the Wednesday night lights fixtures, and it was just great. Everything was, we absolutely thrashed them, of course, and it was always made the evening that followed a lot sweeter then. And yeah, it was just those memories that have been made, like on the bus, in training, anything, playing the games. You really get closer together, and really thinking back all those fond memories. We're just very grateful for them now.
Brilliant. Love it. Thank you ever so much, guys, for joining us this evening. We've stolen more than an hour of your time, so I really appreciate it. I'm sure Esam's really hungry. Going for his cheese sandwich, no doubt. Yeah. Thanks again to Howell and Will and Henry, as well as captains on the call, who've contributed some great stuff there. And hopefully we'll be able to all catch up over a civilized beer or uncivilized, depending on the locations, and properly talk rugby and life, and share some more stories and recall some great moments. I'd just like to say thanks to all of you for what you've given to the club. When I arrived, we set out and talked about making memories, having fun, and building a legacy. And you guys have contributed to all of that. For me personally, but more importantly for the whole club, and something that's been standing since 1876. It's why we've created the Maroon in the 1876 club, and long may it continue. And it's the quality of the leaders that come through from this club that really make the difference. to the future, and there's many more generations to come. So please keep supporting us. Thank you again for your time and your efforts, and I really do look forward to catching up with all of you at some point in the near future. Take care, guys.
Cheers. Good to see you all.
Peace, everyone.
See you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Hoping for a Welsh win.
Come on.
Go on, get in.
No chance.